All right, good morning. Today we're going to finish chapter 13. We're going to talk about the California Gold Rush, and the California Gold Rush is going to have a major effect on what ends up happening in the United States after this. So California before the gold rush. Before the 49ers came, California was populated by as many as 150,000 Native Americans and 6,000 Californios, most of whom lived on huge cattle ranches. So the Californios were basically, Spanish Mexicans, I guess you would say, people of Spanish descent that were living in Mexico, and they lived in the California part of Mexico, kind of like the Tejanos that lived in Texas. One important Californio was Mariano Vallejo. This is Vallejo right here. And he was a member of one of the oldest Spanish families in America, and he owned 250,000 acres of land. That is massive. 250,000 acres. Just considering the vastness of that, if you take 160 acres basically is 1 square mile. So this is a vast amount of land that he has. Now, very few foreigners were granted land in California, but the one exception was John Sutter, who was granted 50,000 acres in the Sacramento Valley. This is Sutter. Sutter was an interesting individual. He was actually kind of a con man. He went to like a secondhand store and bought himself a military uniform. He then went down to Mexico and he presented himself as a very distinguished military individual who was looking for a settlement and that he would protect the area. So they granted him 50,000 acres when that's not at all who he was. Now, one of the people that Sutter hired is a man by the name of James Marshall. So in 1848, Sutter sent James Marshall to build a sawmill on the nearby American River. And while he was down by the water, I don't know if he was cleaning off his tools or what he's looking at, but he sees these sparkling looking rocks under the surface, and he discovers gold. Now, he goes back and obviously talks to Sutter. And this is something that they're trying to keep under wraps because they want to be able to get all this gold themselves. But unfortunately, one of the people who worked on the ranch went into town, started blabbing his mouth, and then, of course, as soon as that information gets out, now it spreads like wildfire, and you're going to start having people rushing into the area trying to get gold. People began to rush to the American River, starting the California Gold Rush. A gold rush occurs when large numbers of people move to a site where gold has been found. Miners soon found gold in other rivers, and R.B. Mason, this is Colonel Richard Barnes Mason, he was the military governor of California at the time. He estimated the region held enough gold to pay the present cost of the war with Mexico 100 times over. As soon as he makes a statement like that, well, now this gets out there. They're talking about massive wealth in gold. And you're going to have this huge rush of people coming there trying to make their fortunes. The following year, thousands of people set out for California to seek their fortune. Now, 49ers could take one of 3 routes. All of them took about the same amount of time and all had their own dangers. First, you could sail 18,000 miles around South America. Most people that took that route were basically wealthy people. Very few people had the money to do that. You could sail to the Panama, cross on foot, and then sail to California. This was also dangerous because if you're crossing on foot, you're dealing with, not only the shipwrecks like sailing all the way around would, but also once you cross Panama, you're dealing with potential for malaria-causing mosquitoes and things like that. Or you could cross the entire U.S. in wagons, and this is how the mass majority of people did it. Life in the mining camps. The mining camps were given colorful names and usually began as tents lining the streams and rivers flowing out of the Sierra Nevada. Mining camps were a very dangerous place to live. Actually, if you were to go to these mining camps back in the day, and even the cities, the mining towns that came about, they had much higher violent rates and murder rates than even your inner cities today. These places were very dangerous places to be. All people went seeking fortune, but very few struck it rich, and many lost everything they owned. And even typically a lot of the people that did find gold, they end up losing it either to gamblers or con men, or they spent it on things that, and they just lost it, or it was stolen from them by people who, were killing people. It was a horrible, horrible thing. Exhaustion, poor food, and disease often damaged the miners' health. Many con men and gamblers hung around the camp, so very few people ever got rich. Now, a mixture of greed, anger, and prejudice caused some miners to cheat others. Once the easy-to-find gold was gone, the American miners would force Native American, Chinese, and Mexican miners out of the gold fields to reduce competition. You know, the Chinese were actually really good gold miners because, you know, the Americans, the white Americans, once the easy to find stuff was gone, they would typically leave. And then the Chinese would come in and continue to work that, and they would become more wealthy. Well, this made a lot of them angry, so there was a lot of violence towards the Chinese and the Native Americans and the Mexicans. One of the first acts of the California state legislature was to pass a foreign miners tax of $20 a month. Most miners never even made $20 a month. So the point was they were attempting to get rid of all foreigners, making competition much less so that the white miners could make more gold, find more gold. Now, the impact of the gold rush. By 1852, the gold rush was over, but nearly 250,000 people flooded into California, and this would permanently change California. San Francisco grew from a town of about 400 in 1845 to 35,000 by 1850, and it became a center of banking, manufacturing, shipping, and trade. And, you know, San Francisco was one of the leading cities in America for a long time after this. The gold rush ruined many Californios, although their Spanish heritage became an important part of Californian culture. We talked about Mariano Vallejo. In the beginning, he had 250,000 acres. By the time the California gold rushers came in, he was down to 300 acres. Many Native Americans died from disease, while others were hunted down and killed. And by 1870, the population had dropped from 150,000 to 58,000. I mean, just killed by the miners. They also died of disease. It was horrible. Because they had such an influx of people, they were able to apply for statehood before they were ever a territory. For many, this was a great opportunity, but it would send the nation into turmoil because this will be, once California comes in, and they want California, they need California because California has so much gold, that it's going to offset the equal sides of slave and non-slave states, and it'll never go back. So once California comes in as a free state, it's going to basically set the spiral into motion to eventually leading to the Civil War. Now, that's it for Chapter 13. Make sure you have everything completed and be ready for your test tomorrow. Have a great day.